Mariah Wheaton again, joined by Rockin' Mosley. Los- lastly, with Flagstar Bank. As you guys know, I'm a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway in Grand Blanc. And me and Rocky today are talking to you guys about rural development loans, what they mean, how much you need down, the income limits associated with it. I'm looking at my notes. Credit score, your asset limit. We don't know what that, I don't know what that is yet. And your fees. So, Rockland, what is rural development?
Rural development is a loan product that was made by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that's really try to increase the population in rural areas.
Okay, rural areas such as countryside.
It's all different. Some people think it has to be country, but like I was telling you earlier, anything east of Vassar Road, so all of Davison, all of Flushing, all of even Fenton are all rural development areas. So these are places some people are think, hey,
Fenton?
this is Some people say anything south of basically Hooker McCamish Road. Oh wow, this can't be it, but it really is.
Yeah.
So there's some areas. It's basically in Genesee County. It's basically anything besides, for the most part, Grand Blanc, Burton, and Flint.
Okay.
So anything half of Mount Morris, and even into Clio, and pretty much the rest of the state up is all RD. Actually, anything west of Elms. So anything.
Yeah. I'm gonna post a link because
Flushing, yeah.
You know, we all use navigation.
Yeah, there's a map on RD that really cuts it and shows you really it is. You can even type in a specific address and it'll show you if it's eligible or not.
That's what I do every time. I always pop in the address and it
That's
says is or is not.
Yeah, it's the safest way to do it.
So RD, and how much do you need down for an RD loan?
0% down for the mortgage. Now there are
for the mortgage.
Yeah, for the mortgage portion. So you have that 0%. Now there is an EMD, but that's usually something that you would probably talk to them about.
Yeah. So your EMD is gonna be your earnest money deposit. That's basically so when you put in an offer, you're usually gonna want to say, I say 1%. Some people do 500, but it's basically so you have some skin in the game, so you can't just back out of buying this house and take this person's house off the market for however long, and then just back out. So if let's say you do that and you have your earnest money deposit in, they get that. It's fair. And that goes towards your closing cost.
Yeah, which closing costs are again part of the loan. Closing costs are going to be your homeowner's insurance, your taxes, setting up your escrow, title work, any kind of bank fees, which obviously that's where you want to shop around on. And then there's a 1% fee that RD charges every loan, which is 1% of whatever your loan amount is. They roll it in.
So if you have $100,000 loan,
if you have a $100,000 loan in this project, so your loan will be actually $101,000. They add that extra 1% as a fee that goes right directly to USDA. It helps fund the program to keep it going.
Okay, so with a rural development loan, what are the income limits?
So 82,700 is pretty much every county that we deal with. There are a couple other counties that are a little higher. Family size does matter. So if you make it's 1 to 4 is the 82.7. If you have 5 or more, it starts adding a little bit more income towards that.
Yeah, what was it, about 20 to 30 grand more?
Yeah, and every person in the household counts. So for instance,
so like a baby.
Yeah, a baby. I have to put
Baby
everyone's
counts.
list on there. Anyone that's working, even if you're a son or daughter who's 17 is working at McDonald's, I have to count that income as well.
Okay.
So it's everyone's income for the whole.
Are they on the loan then?
They're not on the loan. They're just on a form that already looks at it. You guys, your family makes too much money for this.
Yeah, just in case their kid get killed. Okay. So what's an asset limit? Because you mentioned that. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so RD has a rule that basically says that you can't have more assets than 20% down and closing costs together. So again, using the $100,000,
assets are.
So if you have in your bank account liquid in a $100,000 range, you have to have, if you have basically like $25,000, then you wouldn't be eligible for RD because you have enough money to put 20% down and pay the closing cost. So with that being said, it has to be liquid. Your 401k doesn't count unless you make it liquid. So there's the asset limit there.
Liquid meaning you can take from it and add.
Liquid means you can have it right now. So you can go to the bank. It's not a car. A car you can't make liquid. It is you can't pay with a car. You can pay with cash, right? So it's basic cash in the bank.
Yeah, because when I hear assets, I think cars. So good to know.
Car is not an asset.
And so we've got assets, credit score. What credit score for a rural development loan?
Well, you have to be at 640 is where you really want to be or higher. They do offer a credit waiver at anything under 640 to the 620 range. But that's rolling dice sometimes a little too much because we usually don't send it to RD until after where you've already cleared to close it, and then they'll look it over again.
So you could get possibly possibly denied for your loan
Correct.
last minute.
Correct. Now some
After paying for
places,
inspections, you have to pay for those.
so depending on the underwriters and depending on the system, a lot of underwriters know it. We have underwriters that are dedicated to that program, so they know if it's gonna get, they'll let us know ahead of time, hey, this one looks like it might not work.
Yeah.
So just be careful. And then, just obviously communicate to the borrower, so.
So fees with RD, I know you said the 1% added to your loan, 1% of your loan added to your loan. Are there any other sort of fees?
No, just the regular closing cost fees that we talked about, the bank fees, which you
Okay.
can shop around. And then there's your title work fees, your, recording fee, there's your homeowner's insurance, your escrow setting up, any kind of tax prorations that you owe the seller. Those are just your normal closing cost fees.
Okay.
The
Should a
key is-
lender go over those with you?
Oh,
Should
yeah,
they be educating you?
absolutely. So we should be able to say, hey, this is how much this is, how much that is. I always tell people it's basically whatever you shop for your homeowner's insurance. I can't guarantee you that, but I let them know I use this number. You might find it cheaper, it might be more expensive, and that will change depending on that number, obviously.
Out of curiosity, so with your clients, do you give them your personal number so they can text you questions like, hey, whatever?
Yeah, you're dealing with your largest financial asset. You're going to probably pay the biggest check that you ever paid.
Tell them real quick your story.
Well, yeah, my story was I wrote the biggest check of my life, and my loan officer never told me what was going on.
Like in closing.
Yeah, this was before I even got into business.
What if you didn't have the money in the bank?
I don't know what happened. So I had no clue. I wrote the biggest check of my life, handed it over, had no clue what it was for, which is part of the reason why I actually tried to be a realtor and decided that's not where I wanted. I wanted to be here to talk the numbers to make sure that no one got blindsided like I did. So yeah, I go over the numbers with them. I go over and say, this is what we assume. This is they say the taxes are. Hey, call me.
Ask questions.
Weekends, yes. Ask questions.
All the questions.
Tell me your goal too. Like if you, hey, I want my payment here. Don't just be like, hey, I want to get pre-approved for as high as I can.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, you find out you really couldn't afford that monthly payment.
Yeah. Or I'd like to have my house paid off by this point in my life. Or if you plan to move one day, you never know. You never know, I guess. You could have like
plans change. Plans change.
Yeah, no kidding.
All the time. We like to have 5-year plans. They move around all the time.
Yeah. So who would you recommend get an RD loan? I know that's a surprise question, but yeah, who would you recommend steer towards RD?
Well, anyone's looking in those areas. Anyone that's looking in Davison or Pier, or anyone that's looking in those areas, it's a good loan. It's cheaper than the FHA loan as far as monthly insurance goes.
If you're making under 82.7, 82.7,000. Is that right?
Yep, 82,000 basically.
If you're making under 82,000, steer for RD.
Yeah, you want to make sure. I mean, because
I'll drop the link.
Yeah, FHA is not bad. It's just RD for those reasons.
And FHA has a higher percentage rate?
No, they have a higher mortgage insurance rate.
We're going to talk about FHA next.
Yeah, and we'll talk about different. RD has the lowest mortgage insurance rate as well. And so it's a better way to go. If you can go conventional, and if you have the 20% down, so you don't pay mortgage insurance, then obviously go there first. But RD would be the next one, or even VA if you're a veteran, they have a 0% down as well. Okay,
we are going to talk about veteran VA loans as well coming up. So we talked about what rule of development is, where you can get it, how much you need down, 0% down, but you still need your earnest money, your income limits, standard if you're under 82,000, what assets you need, credit score required. I'm looking at my notes, and fees associated. Next time we're going to talk about our FHA. And guys, remember, ask questions. Yes. Ask your lender all the questions. Ask your realtor all the questions. They should be telling you to ask questions. Your realtor should. And they should have a reason as to why they want you to go to their lender. I like Rocky because we compared people's loans and the difference. So I love that.
And I'll shoot you straight. If someone's better than me, I'll try to go with that person.
He gets the most referrals that way from people he says go somewhere else. Yeah. It's kind of cool. So remember, try and ask questions, educate yourself, and we will see you next time.
See you soon.
Bye.